everybody, I thought I'd take a break from the chalkboard this week and try to do this video as a fireside chat. In a recent video we talked about songwriting processes and song paths, and one of them was called noodling, a process where a song is actually written, the initial idea for a song starts with playing around at the instrument. I also mentioned how this is kind of a rare process for me. Except for much older material, it's not one that has been used much in the last 10 or 15 years. All of that was to set the context for the story of how a particular song, in this case one of our upcoming Insiders releases, got written. And this is a category of videos I like to call Composography. Back in September of last year, I started playing guitar again for a while after a pretty long break. And maybe that's a story for another video. But at first it was mostly working up old material. I was trying to get back in shape, trying to remember forgotten songs, things like that. But then, back in May, one evening I just sort of felt inclined to play around with something entirely random. And I started out by playing the simplest, most unimpressive lick in the world. At first, I was not impressed, but it did lead to a couple of ideas for chords and changes, so I kind of ran with it. I decided it wasn't so bad that I should throw it out, and I kind of decided to play around with it over the next few nights. Over that time, a couple of riffs started to solidify, a couple of chord changes, and one of them brought about sort of a neat kind of change of energy in what I perceived might be a bridge section. As I played around with that, the first sort of largely improvised lyrics and melody kind of started to happen. Now, oh, I'm lost and found. Now with that, I had at least now a concept for the song and chords for 3 different sections. I also had the very beginnings of a budding melody. I still wasn't terribly impressed with the whole thing, but I kind of felt like it was still worth playing with. I was a little more convinced, so I kept going. At this point, I started to try playing around with lyric ideas based on the concept I have. I ended up with kind of a unique, at least for me, mantra-style repetition of similar lines, and the lines actually correlated across 2 different verses, creating some kind of patterns to tie the song together. Speak that I might hear, that I might know, that I might see, that I might go, that I... So now, perhaps counterintuitively, the chorus of the song actually came last. But when it did, it kind of brought the whole concept of the song together and into focus. It also let me then put together a roadmap, or basically a structural order for how the song would fit together. And once I had that, I could throw in a few finishing touches and actually put together a rough recording that let me visualize the whole song from top to bottom. That chorus, when it finally showed up, also gave me a title. As I return to the day, the dream is falling away. Now, what makes this song a good candidate for one of our first Insiders releases is that I have this rough recording that's put together. If I clean it up a little bit, do some editing, some tightening, it'd be a nice representation of the completed song, just vocals and guitar, of course. But a nice sort of little package to share with our Insiders. If you'd like to hear this or any other Insiders releases, check out the Patreon campaign by clicking support at the end of the video. So this tune kind of came together, and it's a little bit of a rarity for actually a few reasons. The first is that it was written very, very quickly. Usually my songs kind of take time to sort of evolve and different pieces come together. As I mentioned in the blog, actually, back in May, this tune came together from 0 to just about done in less than a week. And that's really rare for me. I can only think of 2, maybe 3 songs that came together in anywhere near as short a time as that. So that kind of made it very unique. The second thing that was unique about it was the lyrical process that I went through, which is maybe a story for another video, but it was definitely very different, this mantra style patterns that were created. It was very non-linear and definitely something very different than the lyrics I've done in the past. And then of course, the third thing that made it very rare was that, as I mentioned, it was born out of this noodling improv kind of process, which, you know, except for very early material, isn't something that I've been doing a lot of. Now, maybe this makes sense, and the reason it might make sense is because I just came off of a several-year break, at least a few years, of not really doing much writing and doing very little playing. So, in retrospect, maybe it kind of makes sense that the process that I used for my very early material many, many years ago is now the same process that brought about this new song that came in a time where I had been taking a long time off. What makes that particularly interesting, though, is that the latest song that was written, the one that is now almost near completion, it just has a working title called The Bee Song. That song is just about done, and it followed a process that was arguably at the opposite end of the spectrum, completely different from the noodling process on this one. And that is a story for another video. So, I'll try to get back to you on that one. I will also try to get a bigger fire.